Good morning, children. Welcome back to our English class. The Selfish Ant Part 2. Already in the previous class, I have explained you about the Selfish Giant Part 1. Now, in this Part 2 B reading, we have the characters, the giant, and the old giant, and here tall girl, short boy, square girl, graceful girl, round boy, and tall girl, many more characters, short boy, and a small child. Okay, to be continued this unit. First of all, old Jane. One morning I was lying awake in bed when I heard some lovely music. It sounded so sweet that I thought it must be the king's musicians passing by. But it was really only a little linnet bird singing outside my window. So here the old giant is describing about himself to the audience. And here the audience one day, what did the old giant find? He saw that he was lying on the bed and he heard it's beautiful music. So first of all, he thought that the music was from the king's musicians. Perhaps they were passing by on the road. But no, he was wrong. He saw a small linnet bird which was sat on the tree and singing. And he had heard through outside from his window. It was so long since I had heard a bird sing in my garden that it seemed to me to be the most beautiful music in the world. So you know that in previous unit, he went to his friend Cornish Ogre and he spent 7 years there. And after returning, he did not allow any child to play in the garden. So as a result, what happened? The winter stayed in the garden. Wherever in the entire world he found the spring. For a long since means after many years, he heard such a beautiful song from the bird. Now the giant. The hail has stopped dancing over my head, and the north wind was stopped, ceased his roaring. A delicious smell is coming from the window. I believe the spring has come at last. The giant jumps out of bed and looks out. Through a little hole in the wall, the children have crept in and are sitting in the branches of the trees. So, after some times, he noticed that the hail, I told him before class, the hail means the ice balls, it wrapped and danced over the tiles of the selfish giant. And now there was no hail. Ceased means stopped. Ceased, stopped. And a beautiful smell he felt through his window. And what did he understand? He understood that the spring season had come at last. So after many days, the spring season came to his garden. And what did he do? He jumped over the bed and he went into his garden. So he noticed that the small children, they made a big hole in one corner of, already he kept one notice. What is that? Trespassers are prohibited. But the children are very eager to play in the garden. They made a hole in one corner of the wall so that the giant can't notice it. And they one by one they slowly crept like a snake and entered into the garden. And they sat on the branches of the trees. Old Jane. In every tree I could see a little child. The trees were so glad to have the children back again that they had covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's heads. The birds were flying about and twittering with delight, and the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. Here, the old giant is describing about his garden. So, when he came out of his door, he found that on each and every branch of the tree there is a small child. And seeing these little children, the trees also felt very happy. Glad means very happy. And the children, they enjoyed themselves in the garden. And these trees bore fruits, and they gave the beautiful flowers. And here the writer Oscar Wilde, he described described as if the branches are just like the arms of the human beings. How we children, we stretch our arms to hold small babies or the children, we love them. In the same way, the trees also loved the children and stretched the branches so that they can sit and they can enjoy the nature. And here also the the giant, he observed the birds are flying over the sky, and they sat on the branches of the trees, and they are twittering. Twittering means making the noise, and delightful. Delight means very pleasant and very happy. And the flowers are also looking up through the green grass and laughing. So everywhere, what did we find? We find happiness and the beautiful nature. The previous nature in the old James garden. It was a lovely scene. Only in one corner it was still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree, and he was wandering all round it, crying bitterly. So I think in previous class I have forwarded one video. You observed a small boy, how he was unable to climb the tree. And everywhere there is beautiful spring, but in one corner still it is the winter. And this small boy was crying bitterly because he was unable to climb the tree. He was so small. The poor tree was still quite covered with frost and snow, and a north wind was blowing and roaring above it. Climb up, little boy, said the tree, and it bent its branches down as low as it could. But the little boy was too tiny. It was then that my heart melted. So when this selfish giant reached near to one corner of the tree, he found that the boy was crying, and this tree was still filled with snow and frost. And climb up, little boy, said the tree. Here the tree can't speak, but we can find out each and every object of this selfish giant is compared to that of the human qualities and human nature. And here the tree asked the little boy to climb up, but he could not climb up. So seeing this scene, who whose heart was melted? The selfish giant heart was melted. And now let us see what did he wanted to observe. The giant, how selfish I have been. Now I know why the spring would not come here. I will put that poor little boy on the top of the tree, and then I will knock down the wall, and my garden shall be the children's playground forever and ever. Now the giant, he realized himself, and he thought that how he selfish he was. Because of his selfishness only, the garden was filled with snow, frost, and north wind. And when the children slowly entered into the garden, the entire atmosphere was changed. The season also changed, and he was I was really very sorry for what I had done. So I crept downstairs and opened the front door quite softly and went out into the garden. But when the children saw me, they were so frightened that they all ran away, and the garden became winter again. Only the little boy did not run, for his eyes were so full of tears that he did not see me coming. So here the old Jane says that he found the small children were coming into the garden, creepings. They made a hole in one corner of the garden and they entered into the garden. So when the children entered into the garden, again the spring came and he found that the trees are full of flowers and fruits. So I strolled up behind him and took him gently in my hand and put him into the tree. But he found in one corner of the garden, still the winter lies. There is no change. And he found that a little boy, he was helpless and he was standing near the tree. He wanted to climb up, but he could not climb the tree as he was so small. And the little boy stretched out his two arms and flung them round my neck and kissed me. When the other children saw that, they came running back, and with them came a string. So this little boy, when he saw the giant, he stretched his arms and kissed the giant. And so what happened? As a result, the tree which was in the corner full of winter changed itself. And seeing all this scene, the children, they came into the garden again. The giant, it is your garden now, little children. I took a great axe and knocked down the wall. And when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, they found me, yes, me, playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. All day long we played, and in the evening the children came to bid me goodbye. So now the giant loved all the children and he suggested them to come and to play in the garden. So not only the children but also the people who went to the market at 12 o'clock, they also took the shelter under the shade of the tree in the giant's garden. And now, when they returned, the children, they waved goodbye and they returned to home. So in this way, there is a human relation. There is a relation between the giant and the children. Now, the different characters: tall girl, short boy, square girl, graceful girl, round boy, graceful girl, and tall girl. So now we have somewhere to play. Short boy, this is much better than the road. Yes, the road is so dusty and the dust makes me sneeze. Graceful girl, and the grass is so much nicer than all those hard stones. So when the selfish giant did not allow them to play in the garden, they played on the road. But now they feel very happy and they compared the road and the green grass. The grass is so soft that they are able to play and there were no hard stones. I like all flowers, graceful girl, and the trees. Tall girl, how happy we are all here. Thank you, Mr. Giant. Round boy, yes, thank you. You are a very, very nice giant. So tall girl also thanked to Mr. Giant because he allowed them to play in the garden. But where is your little companion, the boy I put into the tree? I don't know. He has gone away. You must tell him to be sure to come here tomorrow. I don't know where he lives. Square girl, I have never seen him before. So he asked different children in the garden about the little boy. But all those children, they did not know where he resides. So, but the giant suggested them to call him tomorrow because the giant too loved the little boy. But I wanted to thank him. When he kissed me on the cheek, I felt as though a great weight had been lifted from my heart. So the giant, he wanted to thank the little girl. When he kissed her on the cheek, he felt some kind of relaxation. He relaxed and he felt as light as a feather. Short boy, I am sorry, but I don't think he lives around here. Old giant, every afternoon when school was over, the children came and played with me, but I never saw again the little boy who I loved. Oh, I would like to see him again. I have grown old and feeble waiting. I cannot play about with the children anymore, so I sit here we know that the old giant became very weak and he was unable to play with the children. So what did he do? He jumped from his room and he came to the garden. And so suddenly he rubbed his eyes in surprise. So when he looked around, he found that a marvelous sight. What was the marvelous sight? The sight is he found the golden branches and silver fruits in one corner where the little boy was standing. And so here when the children saw, they felt very happy. The old giant leaps down the stairs into the snowy garden and to the grassy path where the child is standing. When he draws close to the child and examines him, his face grows red with anger. So he looked at the little child, and first of all he felt very happy. But when he saw that little child's hands and legs were wounded, he became very angry, and he wanted to kill the person who wounded the little boy. The old who hath dared to wound thee, your hands, your feet, who hath dared to wound thee, tell me that I may take out my big sword and slay him. So he wanted to take the sword and he wanted to kill the person. Child, nay, but these are the wounds of love, they are necessary. Falling to his knees, little child, who art thou? Child, smiling, you let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to live in my garden, which is in paradise. The child climbs into the old giant's arms. The winter melts away before them as they walk into an ever expanding garden. So the child is none but the angel of God. So he said to the giant, one day he allowed him to play in the garden. Now he wants to take him to the paradise. Paradise means heaven. When the giant became normal and he was no more selfish, this angel, the and God's messenger, he came to take him to the paradise or to the heaven. So what do you understand? We understood that whenever we are selfless, really God will help us. Okay, children. Thank you. You once read this lesson.